What is up, everybody? Johnny Blacklight Bro here, and today we're just going to get into some random creepy TikTok videos and see what we can find. So let's get into it.
Alex claims that when he was a kid, he met someone under his back porch that changed his life forever. He grew up with neglectful parents at best, and at worst, his dad would turn his screams and his fists on his child, but he learned pretty quickly how to dodge the worst of it. Now, his mom was not very much help in any of this. All she would do is just hang out in the kitchen and smoke her cigarettes. At the time, they basically lived in the middle of nowhere. It was a really long walk for a 6-year-old to the next neighbor's house, so that meant there was no one to run to for any sort of help. Alex was a pretty small kid, so he learned pretty early on that he could fit into very tight places. He could hide behind the futon, he could hide in the dryer. He basically became a master of hiding. This one particular night, though, he chose to do something a little bit different. He could hear his dad's yells, and they were starting to get violent. And his mom was not helping the situation. She was basically just adding fuel to the fire. So Alex knew that he had to find a really good spot to hide. And he had actually found just a few days earlier that there was a hole in their back porch. Now, this was not big enough for any sort of grown man to fit through, but it was just big enough for a small, skinny 6-year-old to fit through. So he wrapped himself in a blanket and grabbed his hippo stuffed animal and crawled into the hole. Now, this was in the middle of autumn, so it was cold outside. It was 40 degrees and dropping. When he crawled in, he got all sorts of scrapes and even a couple splinters in his hand, but he fit. It was actually pretty spacious compared to most of his hiding spaces. The biggest issue came in with the ground, because it was still a little bit wet from the rain that happened a few days earlier. So Alex curled himself up into a ball and covered himself with his blanket, but at this point, he was freezing cold and his teeth were chattering. But being down there was better than being up in the house with his dad acting the way that he was. Suddenly, Alex heard a voice, and it said, "Honey, are you cold?" This was not the voice of his mom, because his mom's voice was much more scratchy and more hoarse from all the smoking. This voice was sweet, like honey. So he turned toward the direction where the voice was coming from, and he could see the outline of a woman laying on the ground next to him. She had a pretty butterfly necklace, and she was just about as dirty as Alex was. At this point, Alex just nodded, not really thinking about how this woman was down here and he hadn't noticed. The woman started to crawl forward, and she wrapped herself around Alex to keep him warm. He compares it to sitting next to a campfire. That's how warm he felt. The woman said, "You've gotten so big, Alex. How old are you now?" So Alex says, 6. And he's still kind of thinking, like, where do I know this woman from? The woman says, 6? Wow, you're all grown up now. So Alex then asks, "What's your name?" And she responds, "Lily." She then asks Alex, "What is your favorite thing to do?" And he responds, "I like board games and I like coloring." And Lily says, "Wow, I like board games too. I love Scrabble." Alex really wants to play Scrabble, but it's a lot of words for a 6-year-old. So Lily says, "Maybe one day we'll play." Lily then tells Alex, "I need you to listen to me. Your daddy put me under here, so I can't leave." And then she says, "Alex, could you do me a favor?" She then says, "When you wake up, I need you to go to the police station and ask for an officer by the name of Lowell Joyce. And I need you to tell him where he can find Lily, under the back porch. Then he'll come and get me, and maybe then we can play Scrabble." Alex was just excited at the idea of finally being able to play Scrabble. So he asked Lily, "Can we be on the same team?" And she says, "Of course." Then she says, "Good night, Alex." And he falls asleep. He wakes up in the morning and immediately hears Lily's voice saying, "Go now, Alex. Your dad's at work." So Alex put on his shoes and his coat and started walking toward town. But keep in mind, this is a distance for him because the neighbor's house is already far enough. He had to walk for almost 2 hours. Just as he was getting a little bit turned around, suddenly he heard Lily's voice saying, "Okay, now cross the street." So he listened. And then she said, "Okay, now you need to make a right." And it's right there. By the time Alex made it into the lobby of the police station, he basically collapsed on the floor. And one of the officers came running up to him, asking him if he's okay. He immediately says, "I need to speak to Lowell Joyce." So they put him in a holding area that was warm, they get him a change of clothes, and he waits for the sheriff. Sheriff Joyce comes in and speaks to Alex. Alex looks him straight in the eye and says, "I was told to tell you that Lily is under the back porch, and you need to go and get her so we can play Scrabble." Officer Joyce turns pale. At this point, a lot of things blurred together. He remembers going back to his house and the house being covered in yellow caution tape, and them taking his dad away in handcuffs. After that, he lived with his grandparents, Sheriff Joyce, and his wife. He tried asking about what happened to Lily, but he kept getting shut down because he was just too young to know. But life got better, like a lot better for him. Sheriff Joyce was the best grandpa that he could ever ask for. And when he turned 16, his grandpa finally took him back to his dad's house, and they had bulldozed the entire thing. Then they sat down on the back of his truck. He opened up a beer and gave Alex an orange soda. They sat and they drank about the entire can before his grandpa said, "Lily was your mother." So Alex asks, my mom? That doesn't make any sense because my mom lived with my dad. But Officer Joyce tells him, no, Lily was your actual mother. Officer Joyce then says, "Lily was my daughter, and I loved her so much. But when you were about 6 months old, she vanished." Alex's dad had imprisoned her under the porch. His grandpa then asks, "What I've never been able to understand all these years is that you said that Lily told you to come and find me. How did you know that she was under there?" So Alex explains everything, that she kept him warm that night, and that he probably would have froze to death had she not been there. But Alex still remembers one crucial detail from that night, is that his mom had on a butterfly necklace. And that same butterfly necklace was still on her body when they pulled her out from underneath that porch. This story makes me both scared and really, really sad at the same time. Thank you for listening to today's story on Explore Paranormal. I'm gonna go cry. Throw a heart on the video if you liked it, and leave a comment if you... See, I'm sad. Anyways, leave a comment if you guys like the story. Let me know your thoughts. And give me a follow if you like stories like this, because I tell them all the time. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.
Man, that's so wild, dude. It reminds me of the movie The Black Phone, like an unrest spirit like contacting a person to try to get help and to try to get out of this situation. And almost acting as like a guardian angel to the child too. So weird, like protecting him and keeping him warm down there. So odd. That's just crazy, man. A 6-year-old walking like 2 hours to a police station like that. That is wild. Very interesting story though, man. So much detail to it. Very well told by the TikToker here. Shout out Explore Paranormal. We'll definitely have to save this video and check out some more of this guy's stories. See what else he's dug up. Yeah, this story definitely went into a way different direction than I thought it was going to go. I was thinking some kind of demon at first, and then now I'm thinking maybe not. Let me know what you think about this one in the comments.
Creepy True Reddit Stories That Keep Me Up at Night Part 13. I was having a tense conversation with someone that I was close to years ago. The conversation quickly devolved into a passive-aggressive fight that ended with the other person getting in the car and driving away. As I started heading back inside, the other person came back, got out of the car, and started our conversation again. The tone of voice was totally different, and the stance was different, and the feeling in the air was completely off. I don't know how else to explain it. As the conversation progressed, the other person started saying some nasty and mean things that were completely out of character. I said, "This isn't like you, person." They said, "What makes you think that I'm person?" I remember continuing the conversation and talking to the person for a long time, but I don't remember anything specific. I do remember becoming more and more alarmed and knowing something wasn't right. Finally, I told the person to go home. They complied and left. I went back inside and started telling my sibling about the situation when the doorbell rang. Maybe 2 to 3 minutes had passed. It was the person coming back to apologize for the original fight. They had been driving around town for a long time and didn't want to go home leaving things unresolved. I asked why they had said some of the things from the last conversation, and they looked at me like I was crazy. They had no idea what I was talking about. Totally could have been lying, but that whole situation just felt dark. Scared the hell out of me. Follow for more creepy true Reddit stories.
What a weird situation, man. I couldn't imagine being in an argument with somebody like that and them just flipping into something or someone else or whatever that is. Sounds like some sort of possession issue. I don't know. Could be maybe like a mental issue. I don't know what's up with that one. That's super weird. Let me know what you think in the comments.
Let's read some creepy Reddit stories about Randonautica. Not mine, but my boyfriend told me this a few nights ago. He and a few friends used the app when they were in their teens, 16 to 17. It took them down a dirt road in the middle of nowhere in the woods in Texas for a few miles to a barn. There, on the barn's balcony, stood a naked man holding a hook.
Whoa.
This man then proceeded to jump down and chases them till they are about half a mile from their car. On the way back to the car, they passed through a smaller shack containing hooks, and one of the group grabbed two. They still have these hooks to this day, because other than that, they thought they had all hallucinated. Apparently, this was in Texas near an area where the Hook Man murders happened in the 50s. To this day, my boyfriend wonders if he met a serial killer or just some random psycho, and they wonder what would have happened if they had entered that barn. I remember a few years ago, I went randonauting with my then boyfriend. I can't remember what I put in for the second thing, but the first thing was fortune, and we were led to a super nice neighborhood. I had no idea it even existed. It was so far out of the way, and it felt surreal. We kept driving around, and finally, after getting bored, I think I set it to anomaly or something, and it led us to the driveway of a house nearby. It looked normal, but there were electricity wires hovering at the end of the driveway just above us, right at the point's coordinates. It was normal for most houses in the area we'd lived in, but there was red string tied in a knot on the lowest wire, almost like it was waiting for us. We didn't get out of the car, but it felt weird the whole way back, and we thought we were being followed, so we turned into a gas station. It's so weird because we never could find that rich neighborhood again. Maybe it's just fault of memory, but the whole time something felt off. Went on randonauting with the intent of money. Pin brought near a convenience store with 2 ATM machines inside. So I thought, yeah, right, that's got money in it, but I have to withdraw. But what I saw in front of the convenience store where the actual pin is was unsettling. A man with a paper bag standing on the actual spot, looking at me as I was standing in front of the convenience store. Next to him was a truck with 2 other guys on the phone. As I looked away walking, they were all looking at me, with one of them pointing at me as if they want to run after me. I ran fast and never looked back.
Dude.
A few
Scary.
years back, my friend and I decided to randonaut later at night. We set our intention to something exciting, and it brought us to the train tracks in our neighborhood. As we pulled up, there was an oncoming train and a man who immediately drove his car around the barriers and head on into the train. We freaked out, obviously, and called the police to report it. I think he ended up seriously injured, but lived, fortunately. My best friend and I randonauted like 4 years ago and found this creepy abandoned gas station biking distance from my house at 2 a.m. It still had signs up for 65-cent gas and everything. The building was gone, just gas pumps standing on an empty piece of concrete in the middle of a busy part of town. Kinda cool, kinda creepy. The actual creepy part came when we went looking for that gas station again a couple days later and could not find it anywhere, or even anywhere it could have been. It just disappeared. I used to live in a place with huge organized crime problems. So one day I was testing the app with a friend, and I told him to try it and think of some intention. The location given was in the middle of nowhere, a couple of miles outside the city. I asked him what he thought of, and he said, dead bodies. I told him I wasn't going there at all, so we found other cool places. Fast forward a few months, I moved away, but kept following that city's local news agencies on social media, mainly because it's a hassle to unfollow each one. One day, I read on my feed that a group of volunteers dedicated to look for people kidnapped by criminals had found a few bodies in the exact same location that had been given to us by Randonautica. I sent the article to my friend, and he couldn't believe it either. It was very creepy. Okay, I've never used Randonautica before, but after reading these stories, I kind of want to. I want to see if I see anything scary. Let me know if you've ever used Randonautica and if anything creepy or weird happened to you.
Man, this Randonautica thing is super weird, dude. I've looked into it. I've never actually tried it. I remember I downloaded it and I set it really close location-wise. It was going to take me to right around the street, right up the road, just off the side of the road in a wooded area. And it was the middle of the night, and I was just like, nah, I'm not doing it. So I hadn't gone through with it yet. Don't know if I ever will. It's always been something that's been very interesting to me, though. And I've, like her, have kind of intrigued to try it out. I don't know. The scariest one here is probably the hook hand guy. That sounds horrifying. I couldn't imagine just running from some naked dude with a hook and from some abandoned looking barn or whatever. That's nuts. And the one over at the ATM sounds like almost like somebody's going to try to kidnap somebody or something. That's horrible. That's super terrifying. But yeah, like she said, let me know if you've ever used Randonautica and what kind of things you found while using it, if you have.
According to a follower named Zara, a family trip to Afghanistan nearly ended in absolute tragedy because her cousin claimed that they had wandered within seconds of encountering something that locals spend their entire lives trying to avoid. And according to her, it wasn't human. Now, as always, before I tell this story, I can't verify whether any of this actually happened. Zara emailed me a few months ago and insisted that this is completely true. So take it as entertainment and you can decide for yourselves. Now, Zara told me her family is originally from Afghanistan, and growing up there was one subject her relatives never joked about, and that was the jinn. Not as a myth, not as some campfire story or legend, but as something that exists alongside us, whether we choose to believe it or not. It is very much real. And she said every time that she visited her family there, something always felt different. Like there was an invisible weight hanging over certain places and a feeling that she couldn't really help explain until this trip. Now, according to her, several of her cousins claimed they could actually sense when the jinn was nearby. And at one family gathering, they quietly pointed to a few people in the crowd and they would whisper that something had attached itself to them. And, Zara would laugh it off and, but then she would look a little closer and every person that they pointed at wore the exact same expression. It was a very blank, lifeless look, like they were physically standing there, but mentally they were somewhere else, right? Lights were on, but no one was home. And it unsettled her, but she convinced herself that there had to be some type of rational explanation for it. And then came the night that she would never forget. Long after everyone in the house had fallen asleep or left, a few of her cousins convinced her to sneak outside. And their family home sat near the edge of a forest beneath a mountain that locals would very, very rarely, went near. Only for certain occasions. And people had reportedly disappeared there over the years, and just beyond the tree line was an enormous cemetery. And according to Zara, the moment that they stepped into those woods, the entire atmosphere completely changed. The air felt unnaturally heavy. The silence didn't feel peaceful at all. It felt like something was listening and watching them. And as the girls sat beneath a large tree talking quietly and, while scrolling through their phones, for several minutes, nothing had happened. It was, maybe felt off, but it was rather normal. And then branches started to shift above them. Leaves were rustling and all of them would look up.
Creepy,
and
man.
They saw nothing. And the forest fell silent yet again. And a few moments later, Zara heard something that made every hair on her body stand up. And it was a voice. It didn't come from the trees. It didn't come from behind them. It didn't come from somewhere, out in the distance. It came from beneath the ground.
And
she said it was very soft and almost impossible to hear, but it was whispering a single word. And all she heard it say was, "Run."
Dude,
she immediately looked at the cousin who always claimed that she can sense and see the jinn. And Zara said that her cousin had gone completely pale. She wasn't looking at the ground, she was looking at them, and she was staring into the branches directly above their heads from where they were sitting. And she was completely frozen. And without saying a single word, she grabbed everybody's arms and she took off running with them. There was no explanation, no hesitation whatsoever. They sprinted at full force through the forest as fast as they could, not stopping until they finally slammed the front door behind them and they locked every entrance to the house. everyone was gasping for air, and finally someone had asked, what did you see? What was that all about? And her cousin just looked at them and quietly said something that Zara said she will never forget to this very day. And she pretty much said, if I ever tell you to run again, don't ask why, don't hesitate, don't think twice, just run. Because if we'd stay there even a few seconds longer, none of us would have made it home tonight. Only then did she explain what she actually saw. And she said something had been crouching high in the tree that was directly above them. And she said it wasn't a bird, it wasn't any other animal that is known to the area. Nor was it any animal that she had ever seen in her life. She believed it was a jinn. And it hadn't been watching, if it hadn't been watching the group, it was only watching her. And what terrified her most wasn't its appearance. She said it was the expression on its face. It didn't look angry. It didn't look curious. It looked hungry, she said. And Zara told me that she hasn't spoken to that cousin since really returning home. Not because they argued or they had any type of falling out or disagreement, but because she's absolutely terrified of hearing the details a second time. And her cousin believes that speaking too much about certain encounters can draw their attention and attract them to you. And Zara doesn't want to find out if that's true or not, but according to her, something changed after she came home. And she says that she still avoids walking beneath large trees after dark, even here in America, because every now and then she hears the same whisper that she heard that night in Afghanistan. And it's not from the branches above her, but from somewhere beneath her feet. She said she feels like maybe a part of the jinn is still attached to her. So, I don't know. Let me ask you. Do you think fear and folklore made them imagine the whole thing? Or do you think that something in those forests actually followed her home? Let me know.
Man, that's such an ominously creepy story, dude. Just the different elements of it, hearing something like that, and then hearing it come from the ground. It's one thing to hear something from the wooded area or whatever around you, but to hear like the word run from your feet like that, it's very, very odd. And then actually seeing it crouched in the tree and then thinking it has a hungry expression on its face, man, that's horrifying. But yeah, man, these jinn stories are just very interesting. I think the most interesting thing to me about the jinn is what he was mentioning there at the end about how supposedly looking into this thing or researching it or discussing it can kind of like draw it near you and like attach it to you, which is incredibly scary, man. It's like makes you second guess wanting to look into that one or go down specific rabbit holes. But at the same time, it's also very intriguing. It's a rabbit hole I haven't really gone down, but I definitely probably will at some point. So Jesus Christ be with me on that one, man, because I don't need that getting wild or weird or anything. But yeah, I'll probably look into some more jinn stories here pretty soon, and let me know if you have any stories about that or if you know anything about that. And let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think of this video. And let me know what you think of these other videos, dude, because I think that's going to do it for this one. Just wanted to jump on and look at a few random weird TikToks. It's been pretty fun just kind of going through and seeing what pops up and just giving reactions and discussing them a little bit. But yeah, man, I hope you enjoyed the video. Y'all have a good one. Subscribe for more, and I'll see ya next time.